Good afternoon, all. This is Krishna Mukherjee from ET Edge, once again welcoming you to the Economic Times live webinar, The Future of Enterprise Customer Intelligence, powered by Adobe. We at ET Edge always try to bring to you the hottest trends and technologies, which hold a lot of significance in our daily lives and need to be discussed upon. This time we are here to discuss one such important topic, which is customer intelligence. How enterprise customer intelligence is redefining the rules of customer engagement, how to visualize cross-channel customer journeys, and how to measure what matters the most and make digital experiences great. These are some of the pointers around which our entire discussion would take place today. Without much ado, let me hand it over to Surbit Jain from Adobe to share his great insights on customer intelligence. Surbit is a senior product marketing manager with the digital experience business team for the APAC region. In his role, Surbit is responsible for the regional product strategy, go-to-market, and customer adoption for Adobe Experience Cloud Solutions and the Adobe Experience Platform. Surbit's broader areas of expertise are within data strategy, analytics, content and personalization, and enterprise architecture. Before I hand it over to Surbit, I would request you all to be please present till the end of the webinar, answer polls and feedback. Also visit webinar website for detailed terms and conditions. Last but not the least, on successful completion of the feedback form, you stand a chance to win a gift voucher from Adobe. With that, over to you, Surbit. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. Can we have the video, please?
Everybody on the floor! This is a robbery! Don't move! Get down! Don't move! Get down and stay down! You move! The money! Money! Open the vault!
Mr. Johnson? Eric Johnson?
How does she know your name? I don't know.
Your mobile app pinged us when you walked in. Looks like you were on our website and thinking about buying a house.
You moving out, man? I need my space.
You may think you can't afford a new home, but we have some amazing new rates. I could text them to you.
Oh, those are fantastic.
And Mr. Davis?
Yeah, it's me.
Did you click on one of our emails about consolidating your student loans?
Maybe.
Oh, well, we can help you with that too.
Hey, what are you doing? This is a robbery, remember? We gotta go! Come on!
Can I lock those rates in on the app?
Well, of course you can, sugar.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of Enterprise Customer Intelligence. Before we start, a quick introduction about myself again. My name is Surbit Jain, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager for the APAC region for Adobe Experience Cloud. And before we go further, I would want to demystify the title for today's discussion, The Future of Enterprise Customer Intelligence. And it is pretty much connected to the video that we just saw right now. And to demystify it further, there are 3 points that I would like to press upon. We are in an age where brands are connecting with their consumers using various digital touch points. Look at yourselves. How many digital devices does one use to connect with your brand, your bank, or any of the brands that you connect with on your day-to-day life? We use our mobile phones, we use our laptops, tablets, desktop computers. The list is increasing. And with this increase of digital touch points, what is happening is the amount of data that we're collecting is also increasing. Now, where does this get into us to? It gets us to the fact that, no more are we using the traditional ways how customers are interacting, probably using a billboard or a newspaper advertisement. We're moving towards digital channels, which is good because we can measure, we can see how the consumer is interacting with our brands. And organizations are already there at this point. No more, we are actually living in an era of digital disruption. the way we interact with a bank, the way we order food, the way we order a cab for ourselves, the way we book hotels. It is the age of digital disruption. So what does this really mean when it comes to customer intelligence? The tools that organizations are using to figure out how the consumer is interacting with the brand is not limited alone to a web analytic solution or a digital analytic solution, I would say. And does that mean, do I just need a view of how the consumer is interacting with the brand on my website? How many people are coming on my website? How many people are bouncing off? How many installs that we're doing using our mobile app? No. We're at a point where we need to understand the consumer from a holistic view, how they're interacting with us. And using this information, this is just not limited to the marketing branch of that company. It is an information that is required by every portion of the organization. It's the era of data democratization. Everybody needs intelligence to be able to make those decisions. And that is what we call the customer intelligence. Before I go deeper into this, I'd like to talk about something that Adobe and eConsultancy did this year. We did a small research and we went around asking, hey, how many marketing what are the marketing areas expected to jump up in your priority list in 2019? And 55% of them said, better use of data for effective audience segmentation and targeting, which is knowing your customer better. A huge 42% again said improving customer intelligence and insights for a holistic customer view. We are struggling with a fragmented view, and what we need is a full view. How is the consumer connecting with us as a brand through the various digital touch points that I spoke about? So before I get further into this, what I would want to ask everybody today who's joined us for this webinar is to tell us which are the marketing areas that you think will jump up in your priority list by 2020. Can I have the poll on the screen, please? And everybody would see the poll questions on their screen, and I'd really appreciate if people could answer this. I'll give a few seconds for everybody to answer this poll. Can I have the results for the poll, please? And what I see here is that it's just not one of these things. It's everybody has a priority to understand data better, to be able to collect that data, to be able to segment that data, to integrate it with marketing tools, get a better view of the customer, and use that data to action that data, operationalize data, therefore delivering these personalized experiences based on that data. Now, before going further, what I want to talk about is how did we get to this place, the era of digital disruption? And there are actually three major points that led us there. The first, the web was born. We've all witnessed this era in the early 90s when the World Wide Web was born. And what happened was that brands started creating these websites. But these websites were majorly brochureware and had limited functionality. But as the web started maturing, these websites started becoming a point where people could do business on these websites. And the realm of this website went to the marketing teams of those organizations. Now, the marketing team wanted to know how are consuming coming to this new channel. And there was a lack of tools how to get this information, and they went to the IT teams there. Now, the IT teams were managing these websites, but the way they got information was pretty old age. They went through all the logs to figure out, hey, how are people, to which pages are people going to, what are they doing? But what were the tools really used to kind of get this information? The tools that were used were BI tools. So actually the IT didn't fail at this point, the BI tools failed. Then what happened in the 2000s was that the internet matured. And when I say the internet matured, there were two things that happened. The access to infrastructure became more readily available. People didn't have to invest into servers, into data centers to run their solutions. They could use cloud technologies to host these softwares they created. And the second thing was that the complexity of these solutions, these software kind of, boomed in. So all the desktop software we were using, they started to get migrated onto the cloud. So we started getting a lot of, desktop kind of functionality, if I may say so, on the web. And the third thing, what I call is the self-funding technology. Now, what happened was that what the marketing team who was running these websites, what they wanted was to ensure that, they could attract more people on this channel. And to do that, there were these companies that were selling solutions. These were service-based solutions. They were unlike the ERPs that require high investments and took time to implement. One could subscribe to them. And what these technologies promised was, hey, you spend 100 rupees and we will take your audience 2x, and you need to give us like 20 rupees back on that investment. So yeah, it was like a self-funding thing. Marketing had control over investment over this technology, and they were trying to increase the reach of their website, of their digital channel. Now, what did this get us to? When this started in the early 2000s, roughly 2005-ish, there were 150 tools, but this catapulted to more than 5,000 tools in the marketing technology era right now. And why is this so? This is for the fact that there was like quick value that people saw, unlike the ERP era where, ROIs were still being questioned. And yeah, so that's where a good amount of activity happened. But what was the basic key need of the marketing department? The marketing department needed that, hey, we've now spent money to get people on this digital channel. How do I, optimize this? How do I better the experience? And they still relied on the IT team. The IT team, of course, was loaded with requests, so there was a queuing system. Information took time to get there. And when the information was given to them, it was given to them in an Excel sheet or probably a CSV. So yeah, it wasn't a very comfortable space for marketers to go and analyze and find those patterns, how consumers are interacting with their brand. Now, one of the most important thing that we see once we had this was that, as I spoke about originally, it was the marketing team which required this customer insight, and the IT organization under the CTO or the CIO, they were providing this information. But what I call was that there was a new term born, modern intelligence team. And what are these modern intelligence team? All these, from the product teams to sales team to customer success, operations, everybody required intelligence. Why? Because their consumers were interacting with the brand using digital technology. So it was no more just the marketing people who wanted this information. It was everybody in the organization that required this information. And what did these modern intelligence team want? I would summarize them in 3 points. The first was 360-degree view of the customer. And what do we really mean by a 360-degree view of the customer? To be able to get a holistic view throughout the touch points, not just looking at the website, not just looking at the mobile app. Every digital touch point, every touch point rather, through which a consumer is interacting with the brand. Once we have this information, once we have this 360-degree view of the customer, to be able to generate insights. And insights, again, not just limited to the marketing team, for everybody else, the true data democratization within an organization so everybody could make smarter decisions. And third, once we have this insight, it shouldn't be just contained in reports that we see on our screens or papers. We should be able to take actions. So if I get an insight, I should be able to, how I would like to put it, press a button and see, hey, if I did a change, what is the impact on my business? So yeah, it's being able to operationalize those insights. And here again, I would like to ask everybody in the webinar today, what are you currently missing from a customer intelligence standpoint? We have 4 options, and can we please have the poll again? I'll give a few moments to answer the poll. Can I have the results, please? And what I see is the ability to analyze customer journey across channel is again the biggest area that everybody in today's webinar thinks that this is missing from their current customer intelligence standpoint, which resonates with what I'm going to be speaking again further in detail in today's webinar. Now let's talk more about the evolution of the modern intelligence team. What we see is that analytics team or anybody who's interested in data, or our data team, where do they spend time the most? And what we see is they're at the bottom. What they're doing is they're being told what reports to generate, and what they do is they generate the reports for them, right? And what are those reports? Again, as I mentioned, bounce reports, exit reports, app acquisition reports. Yeah, so, and where do we want actually these data teams to be? What we want these data teams to do is to be able to generate insights, being able to generate insights that have impact over the business, right? And further, to be able to go into a realm that, we're trying to get automated insights, we're trying to go more in an automated action point. But what's happening right now is organizations we see are hiring a lot of smart people. We're hiring data scientists, we're hiring people with specialized interests in analytics. But what the tools are letting us down is that 80% of their time is spent doing reporting analysis rather than going up the stream where they're doing predictive, prescriptive, and further automated work. Now, to get to the bottom of this, what I have put is a hierarchy of data tasks. And what I mean by hierarchy of data tasks is from lower from value to the upper in value, right? To get to data, there is a certain brick and mortar work that needs to be done. We need to have the infrastructure, we need to have the data platform, we need to have the storage, we warehouse data, we get it all together. And after we've done these basic steps, then we are able to do analysis, explore that data, discover trends, insights, so on and so forth. But let's park it here and let's let's look at another concept, right? Data and knowledge. And what I would like to stress is data is not equal to knowledge. And a lot of people say, hey, big data therefore should be equal to big knowledge. So let's understand what is data. Data is simply recorded, structured transaction as they take place. I came to your website, I came to your mobile app, I looked at a product. Information. What is information? It's the result of processing that data. And information could be that, hey, people looking at product A are also looking at product B. Yeah, it could be as bizarre as, hey, people looking for baby diapers could also be interested in beer opening cans, right? And what is knowledge? And the knowledge is that, we've understood the correlation between this. We've been able to, test this out saying, hey, if somebody's buying this product, if I cross-sell this product, this would increase the cart value. So there's a difference between data, information, and knowledge. Now let's stack this to the hierarchy of data tasks that I spoke about. The data platform, infrastructure, storage, warehousing, connectivity, ingestion, that's all data. Insights, discovery, exploration, analysis, that all flows into the realm of information. But what we really need to go towards is knowledge and value, which is automating these things, the systems prescribing us, we being able to model up business and logic with those patterns. And with this, I would want to talk a bit about the Adobe Analytics solution and how does that fit in with the enterprise customer intelligence. First, I would like to talk about data collection, and that's where I spoke a lot about the various data points, that touch points. A lot of us majorly look at web, email, probably ads, mobile app a lot, but these are not the only channels that we or any organizations, consumers are connecting to their brands with. There are a plethora of channels that we are using. We're using wearables from your Apple Watches to any of your Android Wear watches, IoTs, voice assistants. It's the age of Alexas and Google Homes and Siris, connected cars. The cars that we're using have connectivity. We're using social as a channel, in-store, call center, and the traditional enterprise channels, the video OTT devices. There are a lot of these digital touch points. And what we need to be doing is collecting data from all these touch points. Then comes data processing. Once we've been able to collect all this data, we need to be processing this data in a way so that we understand the user's journey. How is the user coming from one channel to the other, being able to attribute stuff. And once we have this so much of data collected, so much of data processed, it's not humanly possible for an analytics person to kind of go into that data and find patterns, and that's where we leverage AI and ML. And once we've been able to identify these patterns with the help of AI ML, what we want to do is we want to operationalize these insights. When I say operationalizing these insights, whatever insights that the machine tells me or the solution tells me, I should be able to act upon it and see the difference. And that's where the actioning comes from. Adobe Analytics takes you from the length and breadth of data collection with all digital touch points, being able to process it, use Adobe Sensei, which is the AI and ML framework, and our connectivity with the other Adobe Experience Cloud solutions like Adobe Target, Adobe Audience Manager, Adobe Campaign, Adobe Experience Manager, to be able to operationalize these data insights and deliver a better experience to your consumers. With this, I'd like to end this discussion, and I'll hand it over back to Krishna for the panel discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Surbit, for those insights. It's really great to have your insights today. And now the most exciting panel is awaiting us. Well, I'm excited today because for the first time, we are having a mixed panel of technologists and marketing professionals. We have with us today Mr. Sumit Puri, CIO Max Healthcare, Mr. Ashok Jade, CIO Shalimar Paints, Mr. Chirag Talwar, Director Marketing, Royal Orchid Hotels, Mr. Anshuman Verma, Vice President, Chief Marketing and Digital Officer, DHFL Primerica, Mr. Surbit Jain, Senior Product Marketing Manager, APAC Adobe. And we have a woman power to drive this panel. For the first time, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lady, Nimilita Chatterjee, Partner Advisory Services, EY, who will be moderating this exciting panel. Let me once again welcome all the speakers to this wonderful webinar. Thank you all for joining in, and let me hand it over to Nimilita to take the discussion forward. Over to you, Nimilita.
Thank you very much, Krishna, and thank you everybody for joining this panel. Surbit, that was an amazing presentation, and thank you so much. That was really, really insightful. So, to just put together all the views that came out of Surbit and Surbit's presentation and trends that we are all seeing in the market, there is almost like two big things happening, right? Today, in addition to somebody's physical personality, there also seems to be a digital personality that all of us as consumers have, right? So there is, where earlier you used to associate a personality with just the way someone looked, someone dressed, the way someone carried themselves. But today there's also a digital personality that each of us carry and each of us have. Now, as marketeers, as people who deal with consumers every day, we need to address not just the physical personality, but also the digital personality. So that's point number one. Point number two is all about customization, right? Everybody's talking about a segment of one. a customer is special. A customer wants to be treated like he or she is special, wants products tailored to their needs at the time when they need the product. That's sort of the big trends that we are seeing in this entire industry. That's when we are talking about how customer intelligence is going to be able to help us address these issues. So what are we grappling with? What as an industry, what across various industry segments, what are we grappling with? We're grappling with probably disconnection of data sets, right? Surbit referenced a 360-degree view of the customer. Today, is all the data we are getting able to collect, able to harness? Are we really able to see the full 360-degree view? That's one of the questions that we are grappling with. The second thing is our ability to measure the impact of the investment that we make. Again, something Surbit talked about, data to value. So all the data we collect, everything that we have, are we really being able to measure the impact that, or how can we all together measure this impact in a much better way? The other challenge that we all have, and I think everybody will agree, is that talent is scarce. Talent is a very hot commodity. Talent is scarce in this area. So that's something that's another challenge that we have. And the last one, and probably one of the most important ones, is that our ability to stay in touch with what the customer wants, and our ability for all of our data analytics professionals to stay in touch with reality. So how do you convert statistics to understanding the business? How do you make business reality convert itself to statistics and thereon, right? And probably I could go on with all of these things. But since we have this esteemed panel with us, I would like to quickly switch to asking the panel some questions. So Surbit, my first question is to you. India's internet population is expected to raise past 600 million by the end of this year. 600 million is a huge number. In today's digital India, how has data changed the way you engage with customers and drive business growth? Can you share some experiences that you have?
Yeah, thank you, Namrata. And so I'd like to share a very interesting example that I encountered myself last year. This was an airline in India. It's a domestic low-cost airline that Adobe engages with, and they use the Adobe Analytics solution. And I went there for a consulting assignment with them with a couple of others, and we met their data analytics team, and we saw what they were doing was they were producing these reports. These reports were basically how many people are coming to their website, how many people are exiting their website, and they were making these reports and sending it to their leaders. I saw that the team had little impact in the organization. The data that they were producing had little or no impact. And I think so the people who were receiving these reports were really questioning, why this report was being sent. So we started looking at data to find, what are the consumers asking when they come to the airline's website? And we found two keywords. We found a keyword check-in, and the other keyword was liquid. And we found people are searching for these keywords, but the website was not rendering any result. And I just thought about a minute, and I thought, hey, I've traveled on this website and on this airline, and I would often want to know that if I'm traveling for a night and I'm taking my cabin baggage, will the perfume that I'm carrying, will it be allowed in my check-in luggage? So yeah, we suggested the airline, can you put a page on the liquid limits for cabin baggage? But kind of something kept tickling, and we were like, no, there needs to be a better answer to this. And what once we did was we took all that data, we took all those queries, and we mapped it onto the graph or onto the map of India. And when I looked at the map of India, it made a pattern which was very familiar. It was a pattern on the north part of the country, and to me it looked like the path the river Ganges Ganga takes. I started looking at specific data points, and the ports that I looked was starting from Dehradun, Banaras, Patna, and Calcutta. And I kept thinking, what is it? And then I was like, people who are traveling on this airline are not probably concerned about the perfume as I am. This is a low-cost airline. It's the people's airline. What are they looking at? And then it came to me, it's Ganga Jal. Everybody traveling from these ports were probably carrying Ganga Jal. And I thought to myself that, hey, if my grandmother were to travel from many of these places, how would she carry Ganga Jal? And it's that typical plastic jerry can that we all see. It's a very Indian thing, and she would never check in. She would keep that right in her handbag, and she'll say, no, this will go with me in the plane. And this was a true example of customer intelligence when we took this report to the executives at that airline saying, hey, this is what we've got from the data that is being collected with your digital touch points. Did this insight only impact the marketing team or people handling the website? No, it had an impact towards their airport operations, their customer services, everything. And that's it's a really good example because we are all using these digital touch points to interact with these brands, and that's how important customer intelligence is.
Thanks again, Surbet. I think that's a very insightful answer. So, Mr. Puri, this is something to you. Today we are talking about. There's actually a dual nature of data, right? On one end, we're talking about data democratization. We're talking about data access to everybody, decisions being made over democratic, everybody having access. Whereas on the other side, there is a large focus on data privacy, who can use what, who can see what, this whole consent architecture, etc., etc. So, I think we are dealing with this dual nature of data that we're looking at. Mr. Puri?
Mr. Puri, if you can just unmute and then speak. Naveen, can you unmute Mr. Puri?
Probably we can move to Mr. Jade. Mr. Jade, if you could help me answer that question, please.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Hello?
you're audible, Mr. Jade. Yes, you are.
Fine. So yes, so this is the one which we can say is a one issue that every organization has to tackle, right? So this one challenge everyone discuss and debate, right? This is not something wherein I or you or alone can set this better expectation and the policy around this one, but collectively we need to find out the answer for this one. Because one side we have RTI where this is right to information policy, other side we talk about a data privacy policy. Right? This looks to be a paradox in nature. In our case, what happens? So dealing with such issues, right? We always fight with each other, and we say that sometimes the data has to be democratized, it should be available. Sometimes we say it is a customer privacy, it is a customer policy. We should not go beyond that one. Internally, when we debated this issue, right, we found that we can generalize the data in the two ways. One is the commonly available data of the user, which is publicly available. And consumer by default has no objection to disclose this one. And then there is some sensitive data which consumer has objection to share or use. So for example, there is some data which is the purchase history of your own consumer or own your customer. You can still use, but behavioral aspect which you really cannot use. So organizations should tackle this matter by segregating the data and use the data only for the purpose it has been collected. Adding to this one, GDPR bringing into the picture another policy which India is talking about, data regulatory compliance and data privacy policy. Right, this will add some kind of the complexity to handle the customer data. Now, in our case, what we do, whenever we use any such kind of the data, right, we have implemented a data privacy policy for the consumer as well. So in our case, most of the time we do not deal with the tertiary sale, but we deal with only the secondary sale. where the painter, contractor, dealer, distributor, this data, by default, we tell them that which is the data we will use and which data we are not going to use. So this kind of agreement are already in place. So I think with this policy, any organization can handle the data carefully, and one has to be very careful, especially SMBs has to be careful when they go on the cloud. So customer data is on the cloud. So we have implemented the similar policies over there. Even if we collect the customer data, right, we disclose them, right, what kind of data we use, and that way we handle it.
Great, Mr. Jade. I think that's a great answer, and I think the most important thing is customer consent, right? That the customer or whoever's data is being used knows exactly what data is being used, how it is being used, and I guess from there on it's probably easier to handle. Thank you very much for that answer. So moving on to you, Mr. Anshuman Verma. You know, we've all of us, I think, as data and analytics professionals, as CIOs, CMOs, we've all been grappling with this single unified view of the customer, right? Whether we call it the 360-degree view or a single view. Can you help me with throw some light on how you have managed, how in your organization those challenges have been managed, and why do we still struggle with this single unified view of customers? Mr. Verma, can you hear me?
I think we have lost him. His audio, I can't see. So, Nimishita, we can move on to Chirag. He can help us with the answer. Meanwhile, Mr. Puri and Mr. Verma would join us. Yeah?
Okay.
Yes.
So
Can you hear me?
Mr. Talwar,
Hello. Hi, Nimishita. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Great. So my view is that, one, we operate hotels. So currently sitting today, we operate about 53 hotels. It is extremely important for us today to walk at the speed with which our guests are working. Most of the people that we host at our hotels who stay with us, dine with us, or celebrate with us have traveled internationally at some point. Their expectations are rising in line with that, right? Customers today, or guests today rather, want a very seamless experience from the minute they walk into a hotel, the minute they check in, the minute they order their food. Even if somebody's coming from a banquet booking, everything just needs to be automated. They need us as hotels to already know the priorities and their tastes before they arrive at the hotel. Hence, the need for us to capture this data through a customer's journey from the very beginning is extremely important, because we deliver experiences and these experiences need to be personalized. For us, however, this becomes a little easy because we're not essentially an online service company. So any guest who stays with us does sign a little consent form, which is more or less a physical form saying, yes, I agree to share my information with you. And we now have started collating all this information. The real challenge is that because we're about 53 hotels and growing, and we've got hotels in 35 different locations, how do you bring all of this data together in one place? Now data will be captured on the website, it will be captured at the restaurant level, it will be captured at the banquet level, it will be captured at the IRD. We also today want to know which customer wants exactly what. So for example, a very discerning customer might only want a single malt. Somebody else only wants a Scotch whiskey. Now the next time he's coming in, he's a senior, it is only absolutely right that we know his priorities before he arrives. Now how all of this data needs to come together is a challenge for us. Capturing the data is not a challenge, just syncing it together is where the real challenge lies.
Yep, Chirag, and probably, as we live in, you go from hotel to hotel, it bothers us probably also that we have to give the same details in different hotels as well. Absolutely. So I guess there's one challenge within the hotel and preferences, which may be an easier challenge to solve, but probably the best day will be when across hotels there's a centralized database or something. I guess that's really where all of us should be headed.
Yeah, exactly.
And working towards
Actually, what it was marketing and IT, right? But then I will, right? But then I will say that challenge is that integration. So if we look at to this one, what are the issues we face when we go into deeply? So one is the data is fragmented. This is the one challenge. Another is the data is available in various systems and applications. Sometimes it is the gentleman was highlighting, it is from website, it is from market, it is from social media, it is from your ERP application. Sometimes it is even from your what you call legacy system. Right. So integrating this data and again it is in various forms. Right. So how do we integrate this data and form a uniform view of this data is a challenge. So integration is a major challenge. The reason for is that all the systems are doing a great job in own piece. But the puzzle comes when it comes for the integration. Right, and we need to tackle with this one. In our case also same happened. So until there is some common field or there is some data is coming from ERP, then it is very easier. But when it comes from the different system, if some data is coming from social media, some data is from CRM, and integrating this data, matching this and giving the insight on this data is a challenge. Because ultimately what happens, it is not only data or single view. That single view also should give you some insight. Right, and there the challenge comes.
Just to add to what Ashok mentioned, Sumit here. I think the key problem we really face is in terms of alignment of all segments. To collect data in the right way. When we talk about unified communication and unified interaction. So in some sense, if we basically were to look at discussing with the marketing team, with the marketing director and other key stakeholders on the customer interaction architecture, what should be the right customer interaction architecture across touch points, across channels, we will probably be able to make sure that the data collection is being done in a very structured, seamless manner, in a much more consistent manner, which can then be used for actionable insights. So I think the understanding here should be clear, saying this is what we want to capture at all touch points, at all channels, and this is what we will basically kind of use the insights to further enhance our personalization, our offerings to our customers. So I think that what probably requires a much more collaborative approach between the business stakeholders and IT to deliver that customer interaction architecture, which really becomes a very important tool for personalization of experience of the customer.
Yes, and adding to Sumit Puri, Sumit has highlighted, right? Another point also to further to this one, we need to consider is the poor quality of data, right? Which nobody understands other than IT in many of the organizations. That is, quality of data sometimes is such a poor that even if you have a good system or good technology to integrate data, still you will not be able to integrate this data. And then you will not get the desired analytics again. I'm seeing that intelligence out of this data. This is also the one more challenge we need to consider while making any unified view of the customer, or if somebody is working on such a strategies for that one. So clean data is also very important when we work on such a projects.
Absolutely, Mr. Jade. Thank you, Mr. Puri. I think, yes, totally agree with you. Data quality is very, very important. It is important that we also know what insights as a business we would like to drive. Ability to collect that data in the front end, working very closely with the front end as well as the IT teams in the back end and probably the data and analytics teams. That's key for everyone to work together to make this happen. So moving on to a question that I think all of us want to know and everybody in this group would like to know is, going to you directly, Mr. Puri, what do you see as the key trends in analytics in the next 2-3 years, right? If you could quickly tell us what are the big trends you're seeing in the short term in the next 2-3 years?
Sure. I think Surbit alluded to it very clearly. We are kind of trying to make the data analytics team, IT people, basically move from order takers to value providers. So they really need to start looking at more predictive analytics, more cognitive information, and automating tasks and making sure that they can really help the business with actionable insights. So I think the important part here really is to start setting and value that is data carries. And I think for the next 2-3 years, absolutely, the machine learning and AI, aspects will probably come to the fore to some extent. But the interesting, area would be training of machine learning algorithms and AI engines. So trying to use, kind of making sure that there is some level of patience, some level of discipline given, to the machine learning algorithms, where the training is basically given saying this is what you should probably, work upon. This is an iterated process, so that we can further fine tune those algorithms and make even more useful, insights. So I would say that predictive analytics, a lot more of, cognitive intelligence, that will probably come in. In my mind, there'll actually be a lot more IoT devices coming in, which would be further added to our hyper-connected world. So, clearly speaking, very interesting times and very, very, I would say, exciting times for data scientists and, business professionals. And the CIO needs to start playing the role of the integrator, the chief integration officer or the chief innovation officer to deliver maximum value to the enterprise.
Great. So the I is going to take on many different avatars, isn't it?
And Krishna, adding to this one, what will happen? So this is that Sumit has rightly said on the technology part, right? Another part I would like to highlight this one. This future, another 2-3 years or 4 years, 5 years. Apart from the technology, CI also needs to handle the one more area, which is the governance and what are the government policies out there. I think after GDPR, it is not only India, but every country is trying to frame some policy in one or other form around the data. Right, especially the businesses, those are the multi-country businesses. They have to understand this government policies around the data for each country, and their IT strategy or data strategy or analytics strategy will be around that one. That will the one more aspect will come into the picture in another 2-3 years. Even in India, you see maybe another 1 year, this data protection policy or data privacy policy will get passed. The total game will change. Right? Technology will be at their place, but implementation of the technology will have added a different aspect to it, which CIO will also need to be responsive and have to study and make a strategy right from right now. They have to work on this one.
Most definitely. So, do you have anything from the marketing standpoint in terms of what you see as the key trends in the next 2-3 years?
Questions to me?
No, for Chirag Talwar.
Okay, fine.
Yes, so a lot of it, because essentially, also all hotels and service providers also have a loyalty database which we manage. So these are people who have had an experience with us over the past 2 years, and we would only like to be in touch with them, but that today requires us to move in tandem with them again, which is exactly what I said earlier. Somebody who stayed at our hotel probably when he was 18 today returns and he's 21 and he's already traveled international. His tastes, his priorities have changed. He's been exposed to a lot more technology which wasn't at the hotel earlier. Now this is something we really did not know, but it's very important for us now to capture it from the minute that he books a hotel with us, whether he books it directly through our website or through an OTA, or whether he comes for a direct booking at our lobby. We need to capture his preferences. Now this database is mammoth. These are thousands and perhaps millions of transaction IDs that we're speaking about. Whenever we think of any customized marketing campaign, it's very essential to, of course, target the right campaign to the right person. And this is where, again, the accuracy of database comes into play. So yes, from a marketing perspective, it's absolutely essential that the databases are correct, they're up to speed, and we can make sense out of them. And that is the absolute bottom line.
Right. So I think, Mr. Verma, we would also like to hear from you on what you see as the key trends emerging. What are the big things you all are working on as an industry? What are the big trends that you're seeing probably right now and in the next 2-3 years?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Now, there are a couple of aspects to this. One is, as a result of the internet penetration or mobile penetration, the rise of applications, what has happened is that the speed of interaction that a customer expects with any enterprise or company has increased quite a lot. So earlier, when you were to, book a product or a service, there was a certain time the product or service would take to come back to you as a customer, since the method of communication was very slow. Today's day and age, customers want instant gratification. That, let's say, if you bought a product, you booked a service, you need to be immediately informed. And once you have purchased a certain product or booked a product, the entire life cycle needs to be managed, which means that the entire communication life cycle for the customer has become very, very intensive. That itself brings another chapter of interaction management with customers, especially if you're a large B2C player. So I'll give you my personal example. I booked a car about a week back, and they've taken the online booking, and now the dealer has called me asking me for my PAN number, etc. But there was nothing on the website other than saying that you booked the car and we'll get back to you. So as a customer, I had no idea. My experience was essentially very horrible, and the car is claiming to be a very global and a nice car. So that's at one level. The second level is because you have data privacy coming in, and privacy has been misused by marketeers and companies. It is important to anonymize and create personas, and basis those personas take action. The third is, even with the advent of digital data, your older tools don't go away. So the example that Surbit quoted of using the Adobe platform to analyze customer behavior, I mean, the easier thing was to just go and ask the guard, the CISF guard, that, what happens with passengers on a daily basis? What can we do about it? So I think the newer set of tools which are coming in only complement the fundamentals of business or marketing. They will not completely take away what was done as a matter of, common sense earlier. Referring to your earlier question, I think it is time that a lot of systems need to be developed from a customer point of view. So you've got an ERP system, or in our case, a core insurance application, or let's say a banking application. These are applications which are designed only from the purpose of booking product transactions. They are not designed from purpose of understanding what a customer is, and therefore what is the product or service that they could buy. So there's a lot of action that's going to happen in this space, and I think that will drive a lot of competitive advantage for companies who can, continuously invest in this area.
Yes, absolutely agree. And I think it's also about, investing in the right place at the right time and being able to measure the outcome of the investment as well, right? I think that's sort of key. Great. So if we could quickly go around the room with one last question, and probably as food for thought for everybody listening in, is if I could start with you, Mr. Puri, on what is probably the one biggest challenge, assuming you had absolutely no constraints on money, no constraints on time, no nothing, that you would love to solve in this whole customer intelligence world, right? Just one challenge.
I think the key challenge would be balancing, the customer experience with, the costs. And somewhere, that's probably more a short-term view, which maybe the management, we need to educate the management about. But I think absolutely, critical that the customer experience is considered to be is paramount, and we probably use technology intelligently with the processes and people alignment to deliver the maximum business value. So I think to me, that's probably the key challenge. Make sure customer experience is delivered optimally with the right kind of cost and the right kind of quality.
Thanks. Mr. Jade, what would that one challenge be that you would love to solve?
So in current scenario, if I look at our business, we always talk about we want a speed of feedback or the satisfaction of customer, how fast we can get this feedback from the consumer. Because the painting, if you decorate your paint, it goes 3 to 4 days, right? Within that cycle, if you can know whether the customer is satisfied during the process or not, that speed we wanted to know. We wanted to know it is something like what we call as the in-hand mortality of the product. When the product is in market and getting purchased by the consumer and started using, at that point of time we wanted to immediately know what is the satisfaction level. This is something we are investing heavily on this one.
Great.
If I may add just one more aspect, I think I'll say probably the real-time customer feedback loop to understand where are we, and probably make course corrections much more quicker. So that probably is one more aspect.
Yes.
Yes, one more challenge of getting real-time data and being able to act real-time, right? Yes, I think that's important. Mr. Verma, anything from you?
I think what I would like to add is that for marketers in general who have to sell online, particularly looking at an appropriate DMP platform would be very critical in order to understand what their user journey across various platforms is and deriving value from internal and external sources of data.
Right. Mr. Talwar, anything from you?
Insights are great. Operations are challenging. So we really hope that we're able to scale up our operations at the speed at which insights come in.
Great. So you'll have to help deliver insights to scale up the operation business growth, right?
Absolutely.
That's probably one of the biggest things everybody wants to hear from this.
Yes.
Surbit, anything from you?
No, thanks for everybody for chiming in on what I spoke about. And yeah, I agree with each one of the panelists. Two key points that I would like to make is, one is continuous intelligence. And when we say continuous intelligence, it's about real-time data, right? The consumers are interacting with the brands in real time. When humans interact with people, we see everybody's facial expressions, and we have historical data about that person. So yeah, it's more about how can we humanize these systems so that we can provide personalization, one-on-one personalization at scale. But the other very important thing that when I speak to brands across Asia Pacific is it's privacy over personalization. We're living in a time where things are these regulations are changing by the week. Everybody has a priority of ensuring that privacy has a much higher precedence over personalizations. So good use of data, while we're saying we want to continuously collect data, but we need to be cognizant of the fact that this data is stored in a way that we're able to classify it and use it in the correct channels. So yeah, those are the two takeaways for me.
Right. So thank you, everybody. I think two things that at least I heard, two words that came across all the time as all of you were giving your views. One, I think, was customer experience, right? So customer intelligence has to be able to translate to great experience, probably real time. That would be the best, but it has to finally translate into experience and to value. And the second thing is really on the whole data privacy, ensuring responsible use of data, telling people what data is accessed, how it's going to be used. So these are the two things that we heard. And probably it's great. It's music to everybody's ears to hear that all of us are thinking across industries are all thinking the same thing. So I think, thank you very much, and handing this back to you, Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nimilita. And thank you once again, everybody, for your thoughtful insights. It was an interesting panel indeed. So here we kickstart the Q&A session. I would request the audience to make it more interactive and engaging. Just raise your hand if you have a query. We will unmute you. Also, please ensure that your audio is connected, or you can put your query in the chat window also. So Naveen, can we spot any question right now? If not, then I have a question for Surbit. Okay, we have one question here. Can you please unmute the person? Okay. Mr. Rohan has a question.
Hello, hi.
Yeah, Mr. Rohan,
yeah,
please
hi.
go ahead with your query.
Hi, my name is Rohan, and I have a question for the panel. So when you actually go about implementing, say, unified view of customers, implementing mapping the entire customer interaction into a journey, when you look at analyzing the cost of various tools and solutions available in the market, and when you actually look at how much value will it produce, is there any kind of a metric or any kind of architecture available where you can convince your management that you need to have a tool, maybe by Adobe or maybe by Salesforce, that will help us to implement these things?
Thank you for the question. Anybody from the panel would like to address it?
Yeah, Sumit here.
Yeah.
So I'd like to split the answer to your question in two parts. It's a very, very relevant and great question. First of all, I think in order of priority, you first need to unify and create a single customer view internal to your organization. So that is very critical. You cannot have a situation where a customer which has multiple product relationships with an organization is not recognized across those relationships. So in terms of value, the value in terms of ROI will come by first unifying the customer's view within the organization across your billing platforms or across your various platforms. For that, you would have multiple ways of doing it depending on whether you have a single platform for billing, or you can make the CRM as a customer master, or you could create a data mart. So that's one. The second part of your customer journey question comes into play, that if you are facing a challenge in terms of ROI for online journey analysis, then you could start simply by doing a basic analysis or a sampling based methodology, just using a standard, let's say a GA sort of an implementation or a GTM implementation, to see at an aggregate level what is happening to customers. Monitor online complaints very, very carefully to make sure that the corner cases which are not captured are represented. And as and when your volume grows, you can look at some of the other tools that you mentioned.
I'd just like to add to this. I think to me, it's also about probably engaging with the business stakeholders, in this case, possibly marketing or your service excellence teams, to kind of decipher the business value. So, for example, if we were to say to the marketing team, and they probably also say that with a single unified view of the customer, I'll be able to upsell or cross-sell this much more. So the business metrics, of say revenue growth or, whatever additional kind of possible market share addition that can come in, that should be kind of put together as key targets. And we expect that these business metrics we monitor once, let's say, a tool gets deployed. So there has to be, every project needs to have these joint business stakeholders, along with IT, to talk about the business value. And that's how probably, you will get more traction in terms of, whichever tool probably is right, for you in that context.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, Rohan, for that question. Any other question, Naveen, if you could spot? Meanwhile, let me ask this question to Surbit. Surbit, if we need to invest in analytics solution, what are the do's and don'ts we need to have in mind before putting in money there? If Surbit, you can help me with an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest do's and don'ts that I feel, again, is, and it's an instance from the previous question, is that look at the channels first, that are most important to you, and start small. You don't have to boil the ocean at the very beginning. Start capturing data small, start with tools that are available to you, and be able to, produce that insight, be able to produce that value. And very soon, what I have seen is that, brands come at a place where they're able to understand the value of data. So go in an iterative model. Don't attack all technical, all touch points at the first. Go take the ones which are more important to your brands. And yeah, that's the way to it, like iterative and step by step, and then get to the whole 360 view of the consumer, and that's where people start seeing an impact on their businesses.
Thank you, Surbit. I have one more query here, that where do you see enterprise customer intelligence moving maybe 5 years down the line? Like anybody from the panel, maybe the CIOs or the CMOs can answer to this. Mr. Puri,
Hello, Shallow, can you please repeat your question?
Yeah, I'm saying that 5 years down the line, where do you see customer intelligence, enterprise customer intelligence? How do you see 5 years down the line?
So let me give my view. So what is happening, if you look at to this one, that there is a change in behavior of the customer. Customers are more empowered today and more demanding. In one of the survey, it has been highlighted that the behavior of millennials especially, right?
Yeah.
They are demanding over the loyalty. Right? Just go don't go by the brand logo and they become loyal. Right? This is what is the brand is giving to us. Right, so this is the behavior is happening, and this behavior will continue to be in another 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and customer will be more and more demanding. In one of the study, it is found that 90% of the people read the online review, and their purchasing decision is being influenced by the online positive review. Right, 86% consumer says if there are the negative reviews, right, so we don't bother about the brand. Right, we will not buy that. So this behavior is changing. Customer is becoming more demanding, right? And to do so, the marketers has also need to change in their working style, right? This is the reason I was saying we are also focusing on that one. So how quickly, how soon we can get the customer feedback? That speed also we wanted to achieve. It should be instant. That is the behavioral change will happen in 3-4 years.
True. So customer is the king and customer is demanding. With that, we need to end this session now. I hope we have covered all the questions. Naveen, if you can just see any other question. Okay, we don't have any other question right now. Okay, thank you, Mr. Puri. Thank you, Mr. Jade. Thank you, Mr. Talwar. Thank you, Mr. Verma and Mr. Jan for joining us. And Nimilita, thank you for moderating this panel. With that, on behalf of the Economic Times, I would like to thank all the participants for joining this webinar. Once you log off, automatically a window will open to capture your feedback. Please fill in the feedback form in as detailed manner as you can, because on successful completion of the feedback form, you'll stand a chance to win a gift voucher from Adobe. So don't miss out on that. Thank you once again for joining the Economic Times live webinar powered by Adobe. Gift voucher. God, सही नहीं अब से डमी क्वेश्चन रखना है चाहे कुछ भी हो.